Have you ever said something and instantly wished you could take it back? Like the words had escaped faster than your thoughts? Do you know that sinking feeling when a sentence becomes a regret, a moment you'd give anything to rewind? But what if, instead of reacting, you could speak with clarity, strength, and control, making every word a reflection of true wisdom? We've all had those moments when our speech outruns our judgment. Words once released become arrows in flight. You can't pull them back, and sometimes the damage they cause lingers far longer than you expect. But imagine having the ability to speak with such precision and presence that your voice builds bridges instead of burning them. That's exactly what today's journey is about. In this video on Stoic living, we'll explore 6 things an intelligent person never says, each grounded in the timeless philosophy of Stoicism. Because in Stoicism, speech isn't just communication, it's a mirror, a reflection of your inner discipline, your values, and your character. From avoiding empty bragging to understanding the quiet power of restraint, these 6 habits not only elevate how you speak, but redefine how you're perceived. And the best part, these insights aren't abstract. By the end of this video, you'll have clear, actionable principles you can apply. Whether you're in a high-stakes meeting, sharing a conversation with friends, or even engaging in that quiet dialogue with yourself. Because in the end, it's not just about what you say, it's about how your words shape who you are. So let's dive in. Number 1, avoid boasting about your knowledge. Have you ever had a conversation with someone who just couldn't stop talking about what they know? They name-drop books, flex intellectual achievements, and casually mention awards, all within the first 5 minutes. At first, you might admire them, but eventually that admiration fades into discomfort. Not because their knowledge lacks merit, but because the way they showcase it makes others feel small. Stoic philosophy warns us of this exact trap. Marcus Aurelius once observed, "Nature does not boast about what it creates, and neither should we." That's not just poetic. It's a principle. True wisdom doesn't need to shout. It hums quietly beneath the surface, present in action, not in self-promotion. Let me share a story. I once had a friend, let's call him John, who was a brilliant tech specialist. In meetings or social gatherings, John made it his mission to be the most knowledgeable voice in the room. He'd bring up the intricate systems he'd built, the major companies he'd consulted for, and the stack of certifications he held. At first, people were intrigued, but as time passed, it became clear. John wasn't trying to contribute, he was trying to impress. One day, a colleague finally pulled him aside and said, "John, your work speaks for itself, but the way you talk about it makes people feel like they're in a competition." That was a wake-up call. John realized that in trying to showcase his intelligence, he was unintentionally creating distance. And this is something many of us fall into. When you feel compelled to talk about your accomplishments, pause. Ask yourself, why am I sharing this? If it's to help, to inform, or to connect, great. But if it's to seek admiration or to be seen as the smart one, then maybe it's time to reconsider. Because when we boast, we don't just lose humility, we lose connection. We create an invisible wall, making others feel as if they're being measured against us rather than seen as equals. Stoicism offers a better way. First, let your actions do the speaking. People will notice your value by the way you solve problems, support others, and handle challenges. Second, embrace humility, not as false modesty, but as quiet confidence. Humility isn't about hiding your strengths. It's about allowing others to recognize them naturally, without force, and that's just the beginning. In the next section, we'll uncover another habit that wise individuals avoid, one that speaks louder in silence than in sound. In our previous insight, we saw how John learned that humility in sharing knowledge isn't about holding back. It's about choosing connection over performance. And one of the most powerful ways to deepen that connection? Listening. When you truly listen, something transformative happens. You don't just absorb information, you build trust. You show others that their voice matters. Listening is, in itself, a kind of silence, but not the empty kind. The Stoics revered this form of silence, seeing it not as weakness, but as evidence of strength, confidence, and self-mastery. Silence in the Stoic sense is not the absence of speech, it's the presence of wisdom. It means knowing when your voice adds value and when it's more powerful to simply hear others out. For John, this lesson came gradually, but it changed everything. He began speaking less about himself, shifting from dominating conversations to contributing with humility. More importantly, he listened, not just to words, but to the energy behind them, the unspoken cues, the intent. His transformation was quiet but impactful. Before long, something interesting began to happen. People started seeking him out, not because he had all the answers, but because he made space for others to shine. His intelligence was still there, of course, but now it was wrapped in sincerity. He wasn't the loudest in the room, but he was often the most respected. That's the power of silence. It doesn't shrink you, it elevates others, and in doing so, it lifts you too. Avoiding boastfulness doesn't mean withholding your knowledge. It means offering it in a way that uplifts rather than overshadows. The Stoic perspective teaches us that our words are a mirror of our inner world. When you speak with humility instead of ego, you don't just become wiser, you make others feel seen, heard, and valued. So the next time you feel the urge to speak, ask yourself, what do my words say about me? That answer will shape not just your conversations, but your growth. Number 2, never dismiss others' opinions. Have you ever been in a conversation where your thoughts were brushed aside before you even finished your sentence? That sting of being cut off, ignored, or worse, mocked, can stay with you long after the words are gone. It feels like your time, your thinking, and your effort have all been silently invalidated. And perhaps even worse, you begin to question yourself. Maybe what I said wasn't that smart. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. I know that feeling not just from being on the receiving end, but from having caused it. Early in my leadership career, I was eager to prove myself. I prided myself on fast decisions and confident direction. In one team meeting, a colleague suggested a new idea for improving our workflow. Without a second thought, I cut in. "That won't work," I said flatly, thinking I was saving time. But what I didn't realize in the moment was the sudden shift in the room. The awkward silence, the glance exchanged between two teammates, the energy completely changed. That one moment, just a sentence, shut down the discussion. Afterward, a trusted colleague gently pulled me aside and said, "You know, that idea wasn't as bad as it sounded. Maybe next time, give it a little more room." That quiet feedback struck hard, not because I was wrong about the idea, but because I had unintentionally created an environment where people were hesitant to speak up. I had traded efficiency for engagement, and it cost more than I knew. Stoic wisdom reminds us, you cannot learn what you think you already know. When you dismiss someone's opinion without listening, you're not just rejecting a single thought. You're shutting down a relationship. You're closing the door to collaboration, creativity, and mutual respect. Over time, I made a conscious shift. I started treating every suggestion not as something to evaluate, but something to understand. Listening didn't mean I had to agree, but it meant I had to care. And to my surprise, by being more open, even to ideas I initially disagreed with, my team began offering breakthroughs I never would have come up with alone. Here's a helpful mindset shift. Instead of asking yourself, how can I counter this? Ask, what can I learn from this? Even if the idea is imperfect, there's often a nugget of insight worth exploring. And if nothing else, you gain a deeper understanding of how that person sees the problem, and that in itself can be a game changer. Stoicism teaches us to practice humility and to remember that we are not the center of the universe. Dismissing someone else's view elevates your own ego above theirs, as if your perspective is the only one that matters. But in truth, no one holds the full picture. Wisdom is born from many angles, not just one. In our last section, we explored the importance of creating space for others' ideas and how listening can become a powerful tool for leadership and connection. When you shift from judgment to curiosity, you don't just become wiser, you create an atmosphere where others can thrive too. Because the truth is, no one has all the answers. Real wisdom lives in collaboration, in the dynamic, sometimes messy exchange of ideas and perspectives. When I changed how I approach my team, everything shifted. I began asking more questions, inviting thoughts from even the quietest members, the ones who usually hesitated to speak. The difference was undeniable. Not only did the ideas improve, but so did the energy in the room. People leaned in more. They felt heard, respected, and I realized something humbling. For so long, I'd been missing valuable insights, not because they weren't there, but because I wasn't patient enough to receive them. Every person, in their own quiet way, carries something you don't know, a story, a solution, a small perspective that could change everything. I had been blinded by my own overconfidence, and I suspect I'm not alone. So let's be clear, respecting others' opinions isn't just a kind gesture, it's a strategy. When you show genuine curiosity, you invite wisdom into your space. You build bridges of trust, you spark innovation, and you help create a culture where people feel safe to contribute because they know their voice matters. That's what Stoicism reminds us. Wisdom isn't about proving you're right. It's about recognizing that truth is often shared in pieces across many people. You never hold it all on your own. Number 3, refrain from complaining without purpose. Now picture someone like Peter. He's a seasoned professional, mid-career, experienced, capable. He juggles the usual pressures, deadlines at work, family responsibilities, and the unexpected hurdles life always throws in. But somewhere along the way, Peter's developed a habit. He complains about everything, from how inefficient his coworkers are to how the office coffee machine is always out of order. Peter's frustrations seem endless. At first, people listened. They even tried to help. They offered advice, solutions, quick fixes. But as the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the tone around Peter changed. Conversations became heavy. His energy pulled the room down. People started avoiding him, not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't handle the constant negativity anymore. Then during one casual lunch, a colleague finally said it. "Peter, I get it. I know you're frustrated, but what are you actually doing to fix any of it?" That single question landed like a quiet thunderclap. Peter paused. He realized something uncomfortable. He hadn't been trying to solve anything. He was just venting, constantly, and worse. His complaining wasn't making things better. It was making everything feel heavier for him and for everyone around him. It's a trap many of us fall into. When life feels unfair or exhausting, it's easy to vent without direction. But when complaints have no purpose, when they don't seek improvement, they don't heal, they drain. They can alienate others and reinforce our own sense of helplessness. That's why Stoicism offers such a profound perspective. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." In other words, focus on what you can control and release the rest, Because complaining about traffic won't clear the highway. Complaining about rain doesn't stop the clouds from gathering. Intelligent people understand this. They channel their frustration into action or into acceptance. But let's be clear, not all complaints are bad. If you voice frustration with the intention of solving something, of improving a system, of making a situation better, then your words carry purpose. But when complaints become constant noise, they only feed the storm inside. So how do you escape the loop? Start with one simple question: what can I do about this? If the answer is nothing, then let it go. Venting about uncontrollable things not only wastes time, it robs you of peace. Instead, redirect your energy. Read, reflect. Do something small but meaningful. Practice gratitude for what's going right. Even amidst frustration, you always have the power to choose your response. Another helpful tool: reframe the situation. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" try, "What can I learn from this?" Stoicism teaches us that every challenge is a chance to grow, but only if we stop complaining long enough to see it. In the last section, we saw how Peter's transformation began when he shifted from mindless complaints to mindful action, and how that shift began to change not only his outlook, but how others perceived him. The truth is, every challenge we face presents a chance to grow, to improve, and to adapt. But complaining, especially when it's habitual and purposeless, blinds us to those opportunities. Reflection, on the other hand, shines a light on what we can learn, what we can do, and who we can become. Returning to Peter, he took his friend's gentle advice seriously. He began noticing when he was about to complain and paused. Instead of grumbling about his manager's leadership style, he started offering thoughtful, constructive feedback. Instead of fuming over his long commute, he began listening to audiobooks or practicing mindfulness behind the wheel. Little by little, Peter's mindset changed, and with that, so did his energy. His words no longer carried frustration, they carried intention. People started noticing. His colleagues sought him out for advice. His conversations became more uplifting, and his presence more welcome. His calm, solution-oriented attitude became contagious. Because in the end, choosing not to complain without purpose is about reclaiming your power. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about focusing your energy where it actually counts. When you act from a place of calm clarity rather than scattered negativity, you not only strengthen your own mind, you influence those around you for the better. Stoic philosophy reminds us that our words, like our thoughts, are tools. When used wisely, they help us build lives filled with resilience, purpose, and meaningful connection. When we let go of empty complaints and embrace constructive intention, we don't just shift how others see us, we begin to transform how we experience life itself. Number 4, no empty promises. Promises, spoken or written, carry a quiet but powerful weight. They shape how people see us. They set expectations. They build or break trust. But how often do we toss out a promise casually without fully thinking through whether we can truly follow through? This isn't always done with bad intentions, but even well-meaning promises, when left unfulfilled, slowly erode credibility and damage relationships. Let's take the example of Greg. Greg was a successful professional in his 50s, juggling a demanding career and a busy family life. He meant well. He wanted to be dependable, so he often promised more than he could realistically handle. He told his team he'd review their reports by Monday. He assured his wife he'd be home in time for dinner. But again and again, he missed the mark. At first, people were understanding. After all, Greg was clearly busy. But over time, his words began to lose their weight. His team quietly started double-checking whether his deadlines were real. His family grew tired of the constant, if polite, excuses. One evening, after skipping yet another family event, Greg found a note from his teenage daughter on his desk. Just one sentence. We just want you to mean it when you say it. That moment hit him like a punch to the chest. He realized that even though his intentions were good, the outcome was the same. He was creating disappointment. He wasn't just breaking promises, he was slowly breaking trust. This story reflects a key Stoic principle. Speak with intention, act with integrity. Marcus Aurelius said it best, let your words be plain and true. Promises aren't just polite words to ease the moment. They're commitments, declarations that tether our character to our speech. When we break them, even unintentionally, it's like writing a check that our integrity can't cash. So how do we stop ourselves from falling into the trap of empty promises, especially when we truly want to be reliable? Start by pausing before you speak. Ask yourself, do I truly have the time, resources, and energy to deliver on this? If the answer is even slightly uncertain, it's better to set clear, realistic expectations than to overpromise and risk disappointing someone later. Instead of saying, I'll definitely have this done by tomorrow, try I'll do my best to have this ready by tomorrow, and if I run into any issues, I'll let you know. This subtle shift keeps expectations grounded in reality and builds far more trust over time. Number 5, don't deny your mistakes. We explored how avoiding empty promises isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. When your words and actions begin to align, people stop wondering whether they can rely on you and start trusting that they can. One of the best ways to reinforce the trust is by setting clear, achievable goals and then occasionally over-delivering. Imagine Greg again. Instead of telling his team he'd have their reports reviewed by the end of the day, he told them he'd need 3 days. But he delivered in 2. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a simple act of reliability, and it spoke volumes. Those moments of quiet follow-through build credibility. They show not just competence, but care. A promise kept, or better yet, exceeded, isn't just efficient, it's memorable. But even the most well-intentioned person will fall short sometimes. That's why the final piece of this principle is so crucial. Embrace accountability. If you realize you won't be able to keep a commitment, don't hide behind excuses or let silence create confusion. Address the situation head-on. Apologize sincerely, explain briefly what happened, and offer a realistic solution or next step. This approach may not undo the delay, but it does something far more valuable. It maintains respect. It tells the other person that you see their time and trust as something that matters. And that's a rare kind of integrity. Greg eventually began to live by these ideas. He became more thoughtful with his commitments, learning to say no when necessary, and ensuring that when he said yes, he truly meant it. Over time, his colleagues regained their trust in him. His family, too, began to see a change, not just in what he said, but in the way he followed through. And perhaps most powerful of all, Greg began to feel different about himself. There was a quiet peace in knowing that his words carried weight and that his actions supported them. Because avoiding empty promises isn't about being flawless, it's about being genuine. It's about showing up as someone whose word means something. Stoic philosophy teaches us that real strength isn't loud, it's steady. It's the quiet consistency of a person who aligns their actions with their values. When your promises and your behavior walk hand in hand, you not only earn trust, you build deeper, more meaningful relationships. At the end of the day, we aren't defined by how many promises we make, we're defined by the ones we keep. Before we move on to the next insight, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to Stoic Living, and tap the notification bell so you never miss new content. And if this resonates with you, drop a comment saying, I love this wisdom. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Number 6, don't overshare future plans. Previously, we talked about the power of admitting mistakes and how doing so builds trust, not breaks it. But here's a common fear many people carry. What if admitting a mistake makes me look weak? It's a fair concern. We often associate vulnerability with judgment or rejection. But let's be honest. Does denying an obvious mistake really make you look stronger? Or does it quietly chip away at your credibility? In reality, the courage to own your mistakes is one of the clearest signs of inner strength. It shows you're honest enough to face the truth and committed enough to grow from it. That's the kind of character others respect. And remember, so how can you start applying this in your own life? Begin by developing self-awareness. When something goes wrong, resist the urge to immediately look outward. Ask yourself, what was my role in this? Even if your part in the problem was small, taking ownership is the first step to a real resolution. Then go beyond the apology. Words matter, but action seals the deal. Don't just say you're sorry, show it. Take steps to correct the issue. Whether it's fixing a mistake at work or making amends in a relationship, it's your effort afterward that defines your sincerity. The Stoics remind us, mistakes aren't failures, they're lessons. If you choose to learn from them, they become tools for growth. And even more, your willingness to be accountable inspires those around you to do the same. By owning your mistakes, you're not just building your own integrity. You're creating a safe, honest space where others feel more willing to acknowledge their faults and focus on solutions. So next time you stumble, don't deflect, don't hide, take responsibility, then commit genuinely to doing better. Because the strength to say I was wrong might be the exact thing that sets you apart from everyone else. Number 6, don't overshare future plans. It may seem harmless to enthusiastically share everything you plan to do. Your next big project, your weekend goals, your personal improvements. But Stoic wisdom warns us that sharing too much, too soon, especially about future intentions, can unintentionally weaken both your momentum and your credibility. The Stoics emphasize that keeping promises isn't just about following through. It's also about protecting your integrity and respecting the expectations of others. Even small, casual promises, when broken, leave subtle cracks in trust. Let me share a familiar example. Meet Jim, a kind, dependable, middle-aged professional, known for his friendliness and his eagerness to say yes to everything. Whether it was helping a friend move, volunteering for another project, or attending a dozen social events, Jim had one default response. Sure, count me in. But as his schedule filled up, reality kicked in. Appointments overlapped, commitments slipped. He began missing things, not out of neglect, but simply because he had overcommitted himself. One day, a close friend invited Jim to a family dinner. An important one. Jim enthusiastically agreed, but later, distracted by work, he scheduled a meeting at the exact same time and completely forgot the dinner. The next day, his friend told him how hurt the family felt. That was a wake-up call for Jim. He realized that his eager yes was slowly becoming meaningless. His good intentions were being overshadowed by a growing pattern of unreliability, and the damage was real, especially to the relationships that mattered most to him. This is the trap. We sometimes say yes out of politeness, habit, or fear of disappointing others. But as the Stoics remind us, your words should be deliberate, not automatic. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." And that includes promises. It's not just about avoiding lies. It's about aligning your words with your values. Saying yes without conviction can feel like kindness in the moment, but the real kindness is being honest, especially when the answer is not this time. So how do you avoid falling into the trap of oversharing or overpromising? Start with a simple pause. Before agreeing to anything, ask yourself, does this truly align with my priorities? Can I realistically follow through? If not, it's better to give a thoughtful no than a half-hearted yes that leads to disappointment. Second, focus on quality over quantity. Do fewer things, but do them well. This approach builds trust far more than being everywhere, saying everything, and stretching yourself too thin. And finally, understand that saying no isn't selfish. It's self-awareness. The Stoics believe deeply in protecting what is within your control. And when your commitments are few but focused, you preserve the energy to follow through with excellence. Jim eventually began taking this to heart. He learned to say no gracefully and focused his efforts on the commitments he truly meant to keep. His relationships improved. People began to respect him, not because he said yes to everything, but because he followed through on what mattered. In the end, avoiding empty promises and oversharing is about something bigger than your calendar. It's about integrity. Every word we speak shapes how others see us and how we see ourselves. So the next time someone asks for your commitment, take a breath, reflect, and make sure your answer is one you can stand behind. That's not just discipline. That's wisdom in action. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your own experiences. Please hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment below sharing your story. Whether it's a triumph, a lesson, or a challenge you've overcome. And if you're not sure what to write, just type "I love this" to let me know you completed this session and found it valuable. Your engagement helps grow this community of mindful learners, and together, we're building the discipline, strength, and resilience to turn every challenge into growth. I'll leave 2 more videos right here to keep your journey going. Thanks for watching Stoic Living, and I'll see you in the next video.